I want to start this video by saying something that might surprise you. Given that I am a physical therapist who has spent her entire career telling people to move more, walking is not enough. I know how that sounds. Walking is the cornerstone of almost every piece of exercise advice ever given to older adults. Walk more, we are told. Get your steps in. Park farther from the entrance. Take the stairs. Walking is free, accessible, low impact, and universally recommended. And all of that is true. Walking is genuinely beneficial. I will never argue against walking for anyone who is able to do it comfortably and safely. But if walking were the complete answer to the question of leg circulation after 60, I would not have a waiting room full of dedicated daily walkers with swollen ankles, chronically achy calves, and the kind of leaden afternoon heaviness in their legs that makes them feel 20 years older than their actual age. If walking solved the whole problem, I would know it by now. After 20 years in this work, I would know. The problem is more nuanced than any single activity can address. And today I want to give you the complete picture, including the specific movements you can add to what you are already doing, to fill in the gaps that walking, no matter how faithful your practice, cannot fill on its own. My name is Sandra Whitmore. I am a certified physical therapist, specializing in circulation and mobility for people over 60. Several years ago, I worked with a man named Thomas. He was 64 when I first met him, freshly retired from a long career in civil engineering. Thomas was fit for his age, not athletic in any particular way, but active in the casual, everyday sense that characterized his whole life. He had walked to work for years when distance permitted. He gardened on weekends. He took the stairs instead of the elevator without thinking about it. But retirement changed the structure of his days in ways he had not anticipated. The built-in physical demands of his former life, the commute, the moving around a workplace, the occasional site visits, all of that evaporated. And in its place, Thomas had built a new routine centered around something he had always wanted to do. He was writing a memoir. He walked 45 minutes every morning without fail, a habit he was genuinely proud of. And then he sat at his desk and wrote for hours at a stretch. 4 hours, 5 hours, sometimes 6, if the writing was going well. He came to me because his legs were in trouble. By early afternoon, they felt impossibly heavy. His ankles swelled consistently enough that his wife had started commenting on it. He had a persistent deep ache in his calves that had been there so long he had essentially incorporated it into his sense of his own body, as if it were just part of what his legs felt like now. His doctor had done a thorough evaluation. No blood clots. Vascular function acceptable for his age. Nothing alarming, the doctor said. Keep exercising. Thomas had looked at that advice and thought, I already walk 45 minutes every single morning. What does that mean? He came to me for a more specific answer. When I sat with him and took a careful history, the picture came into focus quickly. Thomas was doing one excellent, concentrated bout of physical activity in the morning, and then he was largely sedentary for the following 10 to 12 hours. And this is the thing that most people do not understand about circulation. The benefit of that morning walk does not persist through the afternoon. Exercise stimulates your venous pump while you are doing it. But once your muscles settle back into prolonged rest and you are sitting still at a desk, the pump slows down. the pooling resumes. The morning walk cannot protect the afternoon vascular environment any more than one good night of sleep can sustain you through a week of insomnia. There is a body of research that has emerged in the past 15 years that I want to make sure every one of my patients understands. Researchers studying the health effects of sedentary behavior found that the total amount of time a person spends sitting each day, separate from whether they exercise, independently predicts a number of health outcomes, including cardiovascular function, metabolic health, and risk of venous thromboembolism. And the most striking finding was that this association held even in people who exercised regularly. Even people who met the standard exercise guidelines faced elevated risks if they also spent most of the rest of their day sitting without interruption. They gave this phenomenon a name. They called it the active couch potato paradox. You can be, simultaneously and without contradiction, someone who exercises and someone with too much daily sedentary time. Thomas was a perfect embodiment of this paradox. His morning walk was real. His vascular problem was also real. Both things were true. The solution was not to walk more. The solution was to move more often throughout the day. What I recommended to Thomas was micro-movement, brief, targeted bouts of exercise inserted into his sedentary hours at regular intervals. Not long enough to disrupt his writing in any meaningful way. Not intense enough to require changing clothes or warming up or cooling down. Just 2 to 3 minutes of specific leg movements, done every 45 minutes to an hour, distributed across his workday. The research supports this approach strongly. Studies comparing continuous sitting to sitting interrupted by brief movement breaks have found significantly better venous function in the interrupted condition, even when the total duration of movement is small. The frequency and distribution of movement appears to matter as much as, and in some contexts more than, the total volume of movement in a day. 2 minutes of ankle pumps at 2 in the afternoon does more for your 2 in the afternoon venous health than 45 minutes of walking at 7 in the morning. Thomas set a timer on his computer. Every 45 minutes, a soft chime reminded him to stop writing and move. He would stand up, do a set of ankle pumps and calf raises at his desk, walk to the kitchen and back, and then return to his writing. Total interruption, 2 to 3 minutes. Within 3 weeks, the afternoon heaviness had largely disappeared. Within 6 weeks, his ankle swelling had resolved. Within 3 months, he told me his afternoon writing sessions, which had historically been his worst, were now his strongest. He was producing his best work in the middle of the day for the first time in his life. I want to explain why that happens, because there is interesting physiology behind it. Your brain is the most blood-hungry organ in your body, consuming roughly 20% of your total cardiac output, despite representing only about 2% of your body weight. When your circulatory system is functioning efficiently, your brain gets a consistent, well-regulated supply of oxygenated blood. When you sit for extended periods and venous return slows, the overall efficiency of your whole cardiovascular system is somewhat compromised. Many people experience this as mental fog, a flatness of thinking that sets in after hours of continuous sitting. When you move your legs and restore active venous return, your heart's output improves. Your brain gets better supply, and you think more clearly. Now let me tell you about another patient whose story illustrates a different dimension of this problem. Her name was Patricia. She was 78 years old and had been through a hip replacement 2 years before I met her. The surgery had gone well, but in the 2 years since her recovery, she had become progressively more sedentary, not because she was in pain, but because she was afraid. The fear of falling, the fear of re-injuring the hip, the fear of what her daughter would say if she stumbled. Fear is something I see constantly in older adults who have had a fall or a significant medical event, and I take it very seriously. But caution carried too far becomes its own form of injury. By the time Patricia came to me, she was getting up from her chair only to use the bathroom and to go to bed. Her muscles had weakened significantly from disuse. Her balance had worsened. Her circulation was in poor shape. She had significant swelling in both legs and a skin discoloration around her ankles that indicated chronic venous congestion. The work I did with Patricia was physical and emotional in equal measure. Every session I stood close beside her. I held her hand when she needed it. We started with the most basic possible movements: ankle pumps while seated, gentle knee lifts, pressing her feet against the floor, standing up and sitting back down with me spotting her. Nothing that put her in danger. And slowly, week by week, it opened up. Within a month, she was walking the length of her hallway. Within 2 months, she was going to the mailbox. Within 4 months, she called me on a Thursday afternoon to tell me she had gone to the grocery store alone for the first time in over a year. She was crying. I was too. Patricia's recovery was not a miracle. It was the result of consistent, progressive, patient effort. The courage was hers entirely. I only provided the framework. But it started with ankle pumps. It started with the smallest possible movement, done safely, done with support, done repeatedly until it became the foundation for everything else. Now let me give you the specific movements I recommend. I call this the leg flow protocol. 6 exercises that together provide comprehensive circulatory stimulation throughout the entire leg. The first is ankle pumps. Flex your feet up and down, activating the calf muscle pump. 20 repetitions per set. This is the foundation of everything. The second is ankle circles. Lift one foot slightly and rotate your ankle in slow circles. 10 clockwise, 10 counterclockwise, then switch feet. Ankle circles work the smaller stabilizing muscles of the ankle and also stimulate lymphatic drainage, which is separate from the venous system but equally important for managing leg swelling. Lymphatic fluid relies entirely on muscular movement to travel. When you sit still, lymph stagnates just as blood does. The third is heel raises. Press your toes into the floor and lift your heels. Hold 2 seconds and lower. This targets the soleus, the deep calf muscle that is the primary driver of venous return in the lower leg. The fourth is knee extensions. Straighten one leg out in front of you. Hold 3 seconds, lower. Alternate legs. This builds quadriceps strength, which supports overall mobility and the daily movement that keeps your circulation active beyond these dedicated exercise sessions. The fifth is seated marching. Alternate lifting your knees in a marching rhythm for 30 to 60 seconds. This activates your hip flexors, gently elevates your heart rate, and creates broad circulatory stimulation through the hips and thighs. The sixth, and the one my patients most consistently underestimate, is the chair stand. Stand up from your chair, pause for a full second, then slowly lower yourself back down. Repeat 10 times. This movement requires muscular contraction from your feet all the way through your glutes. It is the most functionally comprehensive exercise you can do while staying near your chair, and the ability to perform it easily is one of the most powerful predictors of longevity and independence in older adults. Now let me address the question of elevation, because it comes up constantly. Elevating your legs so that they are above the level of your heart assists venous return by using gravity in your favor. For people with chronic venous insufficiency or significant swelling, 10 to 15 minutes of elevation in the afternoon can produce noticeable reductions in ankle swelling by evening. Treat elevation as a complement to active movement, not a substitute for it. Do your exercises, then elevate. End the elevation session with a few ankle pumps before lowering your legs. Excess sodium causes fluid retention, and that retained fluid accumulates preferentially in your lower extremities. If your diet is high in processed foods or restaurant meals, reducing your sodium intake may produce visible improvements in ankle swelling within a week or two. Adequate hydration matters equally. Dehydrated blood is thicker blood, and thicker blood pools more readily. Drink water consistently throughout the day, not just when you feel thirsty, because after 60, thirst perception becomes an unreliable signal. Thomas told me on his last visit that he now thinks of his body the way he used to think about civil infrastructure. You maintain it consistently, or you pay for the neglect. You do not build something well and then walk away and expect it to take care of itself forever. He called his movement breaks preventive maintenance. He has never missed a session. You can do this from your couch. No excuses. 5 minutes a day changes everything for your legs. I am Sandra Whitmore. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next video.